Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Service that I didn't plan on. So, so I just want to read a little something from Srila Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, text number 7. Famous verse. Yastreya Sanishchitam Bruhitam Me. That Arjuna tells Krishna, I am confused about my duty. And therefore I'm asking you clearly to explain to me clearly what is best for me. And so that's a very important statement. Because generally we want to hear what we want to hear. We don't want to hear what's good for us. We want to hear what I want. And so this is Krishna. This is Arjuna asking Krishna, tell me what I need. Don't tell me what I don't want you to entertain me. And so, Shishastiham Shadimam Pranam, that I am your disciple, a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So this is the mood. This is the mood that one has to have for spiritual advancement and initiation. Initiation is a step toward pure devotional service. But initiation in itself, what we do in the initiation, this moment, the ceremony, as Prabhupada said, it's a formality. The real initiation begins when one decides, I will surrender to Krishna. This is the real moment of initiation. Because one allows the instructions of Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas to enter into one's consciousness and one's heart. Until that moment, you can go through all the yajnas, ceremonies, and all you want. But until we open up and become Krishna conscious, then not much will happen. So Srila Prabhupada says. Similarly, the world's situation is such that the perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities, but one should approach a spiritual master. This is the purpose of this verse. And the Srila Prabhupada says at the end, he is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious. And now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. So just something from Srila Prabhupada to set the mood. So some things that Srila Prabhupada just said in that little paragraph. Someone bring some water. He says that so Srila Prabhupada says that the talks are very serious. The serious doesn't mean there's no humor or there's no but it means that one has to take it seriously. And the talks is only the beginning of seriousness. The seriousness is really established by one following the result of what is spoken about. Because in Krishna consciousness, we don't come together just to talk. We don't have time. If one is a Vaishnava, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the mission of the Vaishnavas is to purify the whole existence, to make sure that everyone can have an opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we don't have time. Serve the deity, distribute Krishna consciousness, distribute prasada, distribute the holy name. So much to do for Krishna. And if we're not involved in these activities, which means the Sankirtan movement, then we won't advance very quickly. Having or not having a spiritual master. The advancement is how one reacts to the spiritual master. And therefore in the Bhagavatam, it is said that Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. When should one look for a spiritual master? Or when should one approach the spiritual master? Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. When we want the maximum benefit. When we want maximum benefit, that is the moment we approach the spiritual master. Not for psychological counseling or any other thing. Psychological counseling, we leave that to the psychologists. The spiritual counseling goes beyond psychology, or it is the original psychology, because it is the instruction of Krishna given to the living entity. So first we will have Harinam initiation. The Harinam initiation was established by Srila Prabhupada as a formality. Previous to Srila Prabhupada, there was no formality. The spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and those who followed him, and before him, there was practically no ceremony. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would just embrace people and chant the holy name, and they would become purified. Obviously, we don't have the potency to do that. Sometimes we preach for years and years, and they still don't become purified, because we're very conditioned by material nature. So, the first initiation, Srila Prabhupada said, this is the main thing. Although he said, second initiation is the real initiation. That means, in the terms of the Vedas, the real initiation is the second initiation. But in terms of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepting the holy name is the most important thing. Just like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Satyaraj Khan, he said that there's no need for initiation to chant the holy name. There's not even any need for Buddhist-charya or becoming prepared to become initiated. The only thing there is the need to chant the holy name purely. And that doesn't depend on initiation. But then Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, because of our impure state, we must worship the deity. And therefore, to worship the deity, we must be initiated. And also the initiation is a promise before the spiritual master that I will serve Krishna. I will give my life to Krishna. We have very strict vows. Srila Prabhupada, every time during initiation ceremony, Actually, in Mexico in 1975, Srila Prabhupada was giving initiation. So he didn't speak Spanish, so he told the devotee to give the class. But the devotee started speaking, and after 5 minutes, Prabhupada said, "What is this nonsense? No. What is this nonsense story? Just tell them about the 10 offenses against the holy name." So even though Prabhupada didn't speak Spanish, Krishna was telling him in the heart. He's just telling some story, trying to make a good impression on the audience. But the real essence is we have to understand what to do and what not to do. So what to do, that we try to always remember Krishna, smartabhya satatam Vishnu, vismartabhya nachatu chit. In Padma Purana, it says that the most important 2 aspects of Krishna consciousness is to always remember Krishna and never forget Him. So to always remember Krishna, Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he says, you must chant minimum 16 rounds every day. Prabhupada said, of all the instructions of the spiritual master, the instruction to chant a certain number of rounds is the most important. And Srila Prabhupada said the most important service that one can give the spiritual master is to become a pure devotee. That's the real service. Because that's what the Spirit, it's not about cleaning the temple or worshiping on the altar, it's about going back home, back to God. We do all these things. Krishna doesn't need it. Krishna doesn't need to eat. Prabhupada gave one class. See, Krishna doesn't need to eat. Krishna doesn't need to sleep. But when we do that for him, when we cook for him, and when we put him to sleep, even though he doesn't sleep, Krishna has no time to sleep. Srila Prabhupada said we should minimize sleeping. That's because Krishna minimizes it to 0. He has no time to sleep. All day long he's with the cowherd boys, and all night now he's with the gopis. So where's the question of sleep? But we put him to sleep because we care for him, because we love him. And then Prabhupada said, Krishna becomes favorable. Krishna becomes favorable to that attitude. So we're not doing everything we're doing here, as Krishna says in the 10th chapter, beginning of the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Pakshami Hitta Kamyaya. I am speaking this for your benefit. So everything we're doing here is not for Krishna's benefit, it's for our benefit. But from our point of view, because Krishna is everything, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're doing it for His benefit, for His pleasure. That's His benefit. And when we do something for His pleasure, He makes us happy in Krishna consciousness. And the greatest happiness in Krishna consciousness is to remain Krishna conscious no matter what the external circumstances. And that's very difficult. But that's especially what second initiation is for. First initiation means one takes up Krishna consciousness. And second initiation means that one decides that now I will come closer to the spiritual master to receive spiritual knowledge. And the second initiation takes us to the point of liberation. And first initiation takes us to the lotus feet of Krishna. So both are important. But Srila Prabhupada said, of the two, first initiation is essential. Second initiation is good. It's good to have. But first initiation is essential. Because it means I'm promising Krishna something. But that promise has to be serious. And that's what Srila Prabhupada was speaking about here, what we read about the Gita. That seriousness in Krishna consciousness, what does it mean? Kirtaniya sadahari. It means that 24 hours a day I must be engaged in Krishna service. Just like one nice devotee yesterday asked How can we be Krishna conscious with all the mundane activities that we're obliged to perform? And the answer is to see that everything belongs to Krishna. My body, my mind, this workplace, the person who's hiring me, the money that I get, everything belongs to Krishna. And my duty is to use it in His service. To be very serious about spiritual life, use it in Krishna's service, and the most important thing, do it in such a way that Krishna is pleased. Like one of the main questions that I get is, how do we know if Krishna is pleased? Or how do we know how to please Krishna? And I say, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad, we have so many ways to please Krishna. We just have to hear about them. But the main way we please Krishna is what Srila Prabhupada wrote to his spiritual master, which is the essence of the mood of spiritual initiation. And that is, when Srila Prabhupada wrote his final letter to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that I am not very qualified, I am a grihastha. Because you have so many brahmachari and sannyasi disciples that are serving you constantly, but I cannot do so. So my question is, how can I serve you? So this is the essence of spiritual life. Always being inquisitive, how can I do more for Krishna? Not how can I do less for Krishna? Because how I can do less for Krishna means how I can do more for myself. So this is a very, 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 very essential aspect of initiation. So Srila Prabhupada instructed we should discuss the 10 offenses. The first offense, the most dangerous and the most common, is to offend devotees. Now it says in the Padma Purana, which Srila Prabhupada has given those verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that one should not blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives. And when they think, well, we're talking about, so-and-so Swami or Prabhupada, who has dedicated their lives to Krishna? Everyone who takes up Krishna consciousness, and especially everyone who takes initiation. You have given your life to Krishna. You promised your life to Krishna. Now, if you promise your life to Krishna and you don't give it, then you should think about the consequences. Otherwise, if I tell you, I'm going to give you, 5,000 TT tomorrow, and then I don't show up, what does that say about me? What is the, what will they think? So what will Krishna think if we promise him, I will follow these principles, I will chant 16 rounds minimum, I will surrender to Krishna, and we don't do it? No. So Krishna can understand, because he knows us better than we know ourselves. We may have a moment of weakness. That's all right, but it shouldn't be a lifetime of weakness. It should be a moment of weakness. And how do we compensate for that moment of weakness? Krishna says, Sadhur eva samantavya. You become re-established. If you slip, you immediately become re-established in Krishna consciousness. And then a devotee doesn't even think that you've done something wrong. So anyway, the first initiation, so we should be careful not to blaspheme devotee. When a child is growing up, when they're small, they see their parents practically as demigods. When they're 20 years old, they see them very differently. So, the same way when we join Krishna consciousness, we see all the devotees as Vaikuntha residents. But then we start saying, wait a minute, sleeps too much, eats too much, talks too much, criticizes too much, doesn't do enough service, And we start thinking negatively. But the best thing to do in my age is this is aside from the point. The best way to help someone is to constantly offer, how can I serve you? This is the best way you can help someone. Don't react to their negativity, but counteract their negativity by positive Krishna consciousness. Here in Trinidad, of course, there's no disagreements between devotees. But just in case it ever happens, I'm just recommending that. I remember at one South Ratiyatra, what was his name? Vasudeva, the previous Prime Minister. His daughter, he came, she came to the Ratiyatra. She sat down next to me, and she said, "Your movement is so wonderful, because here in Trinidad, people are always criticizing one another, and you're just chanting and dancing together." I said, "Yeah, that's our goal." I didn't want to say it anymore. So there are some people among the devotees who every once in a while. So we should be careful that if we criticize someone, it should be constructive, which means it should include rectification, and it should be done in the mood of service, not out of anger, not out of frustration, not out of ego. Then we avoid this offense. The second offense, to consider the demigod, names of the demigod, not only the names, but the potencies of the demigods, to be equal or greater than Krishna. So, each demigod represents a particular opulence, a particular need. So, when we put our needs or our desires before Krishna, before serving Krishna, this is also the second offense against the holy name. So the third offense, do not blaspheme or disobey the spiritual master. So that's pretty clear. It doesn't require a lot of explanation. Fourth offense, don't blaspheme the Vedic literature, or literature that pursues the Vedic version. So that means that, it basically means that we have to follow the Bhagavatam. Because if you're hearing the Bhagavatam and you don't obey it, or you're hearing Bhagavad Gita and you don't obey it, then you may be guilty of blasphemy. Otherwise, if some Bhagavatam, which is the literary incarnation of Krishna, manifests in our life and we don't take it seriously, it's just like, if here's the deity, if we're sitting here arguing with someone, and here's the deity, which Rupa Goswami says you should never do. You should never discuss anything in front of the deity except glorify the deity. So, the Bhagavatam and the holy name are constantly manifest, and therefore we have to try to obey them to the best of our ability. Then, don't think the holy name is imaginary. That the great sages of ancient times sat around and spun some stories to keep everybody in line. They said, let's make up some nice Vedic stories, and then everyone will obey. So otherwise, that the sages tried to trick everybody into being a nicer person. So this is an event. And to think that the glories of the holy name are exaggerated. The holy name is Krishna himself, Abhinatvam Namanamino. There's no difference between Krishna and his holy name, and therefore we should obey it. And then to commit sinful activities and think, no problem, I'll just get rid of them by chanting. If I do double, if I commit a whole lot of sinful activities, I'll chant some extra rounds and get rid of them. But the holy name is not a scrubbing agent that you shake it No, let me clean that. No. The holy name is Krishna himself, who offers to purify us. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nityananda Jagayam Radai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I pardon everything you've ever done. How much was it? When Chitragupta was requested by Yamaraj, please read the offenses that these two have committed. And Chitragupta said, I've had 100 scribes writing for decades, and they still have not come to the end. And yet Lord Chaitanya forgave all of that on one condition: don't do it again. And so that should be our even though we may slip a little bit, but not that we slip daily. Just like you go into a mall or something, they have a little sign that says caution, slippery surface. So we should see that sign every time we go out into material nature. And then don't think that chanting of the holy name can be equal to some ritual. Now one may think, well, I know the holy name is Krishna. But if we're more interested in going to a marriage ceremony than we are in going to a Bhagavatam class, then that indicates that my reality is that I prefer the ritual to the holy name. And so we have to be careful about these things. The ninth offense, to preach to people about the glories of Krishna and His holy name when they are not prepared. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, it's also an offense for a spiritual master to initiate people so that they will become his followers. And that's both sides. Everything has two sides. And the last offense, to continue to cultivate material desires even when we've understood the greatness of the holy name. Which means that if we continue to cultivate material desires, we have not realized the greatness of the holy name. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. So therefore, that offense in itself is telling us that we have to be very careful that to chant in such a way that the chanting really purifies our existence to the point where hearing about Krishna is the only thing we're interested in. Nothing else. And so, anyway, and to avoid all of these offenses, the last point is that one should chant with attention, not to chant inattentively. Just like the Prime Minister of Trinidad walks in right now, or walks in, knocks on your door, and says, I'd like to speak to you. You say, well, I'm sorry, I have a cell phone call. Or, some lawyer comes to your house and says, your long-lost uncle has just left you 100 million TT. I'm sorry, I'm on a call with my good friend, don't have time. So, Dhruva Maharaj has classified the holy name Apidivya Ratnam as the transcendental, as Krishna, and his holy name as the transcendental jewel. So if Krishna is a transcendental jewel, why would we want something less? This is all, and this is what Krishna consciousness means. To really find out the real purpose of life and practice it 24 hours a day. And the first people we practice it with are the Vaishnavas. Sometimes we don't have a problem with outside people because we don't have to live with them. No. We don't have to do service with them. And, or even our co-workers because we get paid for it. But when you come to the temple and do voluntary service, then you can find all kinds of reasons why. Not to be in agreement with the fellow Vaishnavas. So these are some cautions. As far as second initiation means that I want to advance more. I want to understand Bhagavad. I want to understand. And Srila Prabhupada, it's interesting. Prabhupada, in all the references I've seen for taking second initiation, he never says it's for worshiping the deities. He says it is for transcendental knowledge. And the one letter he does mention it, he says, do not give initiation, second initiation for worshiping the deity. Interesting. When I analyzed that, I thought, yes, because if I'm not going to understand the essence of the deity, how can I worship the deity properly? No. If it's just a mechanical thing, oh, I got the initiation, now I can go on the altar. And, just like you can go to any flower shop and you can see they can make a very nice flower arrangement. It doesn't require bhakti. Bhakti to flowers, maybe, but not bhakti to Krishna. So, anyone with good taste can dress the deity, but the deity may not accept it. So you're trying to dress the deity and everything goes wrong. We can understand the deity is telling you, if you want to dress me, you become purified. So Srila Prabhupada was saying that, don't just give initiation for worshiping the deity, because if that's the only motivation of the person, they will fail. And we've seen that time and time again. So, second initiation means acquiring that understanding of Krishna by which I will love him so much that I want to serve him 24 hours a day. That's what it means. Hearing about Krishna, serving Krishna, surrendering to Krishna in such a way that I want to hear about him 24 hours a day. I don't want to do anything else. That's our goal. Not, as I mentioned yesterday, not that, let me do the minimum, let me do the maximum. And the fortunate or the unfortunate thing about the maximum is that you never reach it. Fortunate because that means that the bliss of Krishna consciousness will always increase. Unfortunate because we live in a conception of beginning and end. So therefore, the more that we can't achieve something to the fullest degree, then we become a little frustrated. But we should understand in our Krishna consciousness, just like I used to climb mountains, that was my hobby. So the first thing you learn about climbing a big mountain is you never look up, you always look back. You see how much I have achieved, and then you just keep going. But if you look at what I have to go through, then you may become disappointed. You may not have the determination. So, the same way in spiritual life, even if we feel like, oh, it's so things are difficult, we should look back. What was I like 20 years ago or 30, whenever before I joined Krishna consciousness? What was I like, and what am I like now? So this is the essence of Krishna consciousness. That we want to advance, and initiation is for that purpose. It has nothing to do with how long I've been in Krishna consciousness. It has nothing to do with anything except wanting to please Krishna and wanting to achieve the perfection of life. So these are some thoughts on this occasion. So I'll stop here and see if there's any comments or questions before I go on. Yes.
How do we treat with sometimes you get devotees, like after initiation, been around a little while, you hear devotees say, it's time for me to retire. I have done enough service, so now I can retire. How do we treat with that?
So it's okay to retire. But what does retirement mean? He's chanting 64 rounds. It means going to Vrindavan and sweeping. This is retirement in Krishna consciousness. It means becoming fully absorbed in Krishna, which is called Radha Bhakti. So, yes, Rupa Goswami recommends it, Srila Prabhupada recommends it. But retire doesn't mean hammock and coconut. No. That's not Vaishnava retirement. That's external retirement. So, yes, the devotee wants to. Prabhupada said, when do you retire? So in 1976, Srila Prabhupada was coming down from seeing the Vaikuntha play in New York, 55th Street Temple. And so he was a little tired, and the woman devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, you've done so much, why don't you take some rest? Prabhupada walked, and he looked there and he said, I would die on the battlefield, just like Arjuna. He walked a little more, and he turned and said, and you should do the same. So Prabhupada said, this famous saying, work now, samadhi later. So what does that mean? It means we want to follow the example of not only Srila Prabhupada, the Acharya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur went into samadhi, and 3 months later he came out of sannyasa, samadhi, because so many people were coming to his bhajan kutir and praying outside, oh Thakur, please, we need you so badly. So he felt like this is a message. He came out of samadhi and continued to preach. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was only retired in Jagannath Puri for just a few months. Just a few months. Srila Prabhupada was involuntarily retired because of his health condition. So when do we retire? That's when we retire. When I can't do service anymore, or do active physical service anymore, or if by doing a different type of service, I can serve Krishna better. Yes, but it should be, the intensity of our offering to Krishna should always increase. That's the point. The external activity may decrease, but the internal intensity should increase constantly. So therefore, there is no retirement in one sense. But we can retire the body when it's not so useful anymore. We retire it, and it can work less, and our heart can work more. Our heart and our tongue chanting the holy name. But no hammock and coconut. Any other questions on that?
Just one more.
Okay, good.
You did touch on it, that what is real initiation, because throughout the years we have seen many devotees come, and the emphasis is on today, and I get a name, and I am initiated. So Srila Prabhupada talks about it as rubber stamping, like a rubber stamp.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said earlier, it's the beginning of your spiritual life, So just to reiterate that point, that especially to the devotees who taking vows and taking that is a huge step, but we have to understand that it's a huge step, so we have to do the work there and try to honor our vows, and keep the vows. So it's not really a question, it's just
Yeah, that was a comment. But I agree. I agree. Srila Prabhupada, one lady came to Srila Prabhupada and said, can you give me a spiritual name? Prabhupada said, yes. So Prabhupada said, what is your name? She said, Rose. Therefore your name is Rose. That's how much importance Srila Prabhupada gave to the name. And so, one time devotees were, at one point they were selling incense. So one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, what benefit do they get when they get the incense? Prabhupada said, incense. So the point that Prabhupada was making is that we want to give them Krishna consciousness. We want to give whatever the vehicle, the mechanism is, that doesn't matter. But the motivation should be that we want to give Krishna consciousness to others. We want to take Krishna consciousness and make my life fully Krishna conscious. That is our goal.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Last.
Okay.
I was just thinking about, Srila Prabhupada says that the mood of the Krishna conscious society, that we are in the mood of Prasad Maharaj. This society is in the mood of Prasad Maharaj. And that mood is a mood of compassion. That members of the society, we should develop that mood of compassion. So one of the things is that we, foremost, is that we, of course, we take care of our personal Krishna consciousness. And as you rightly say, we follow the spiritual master's orders and all that. But then by extension, what about the greater good, the society and so on? That element of compassion for other fallen souls to preach and so on.
So compassion for society means distributing the holy name and distributing books. Making festivals. That's compassion for society. And compassion for the individual is when Krishna puts us in touch with someone, to try to act and speak and do everything in such a way that they will see genuine Krishna consciousness. Because it's not really us, when we preach, it's not that we convince someone, but it's that Paramatma perceives our sincerity. It's not a question of being an expert, eloquent locator, expert preacher or something, or expert speaker. It's a question of sincerity of the heart. Because even if you talk to someone and they become a little interested in Krishna consciousness, if we can't show them a good example, both individually and collectively, they will not be happy. Just like there's been so many psychological studies that show that when children have a good mother and a good father, their tendency is to be a little more emotionally balanced. And when they don't have it, so the same when people come into Krishna consciousness, if those who they look up to do not inspire them, then Srila Prabhupada classified this as jiva himsa, violence against the jiva. Srila Prabhupada said the greatest violence against the jiva is to have the opportunity to give Krishna consciousness to someone and you don't do it. Either you don't do it by ignoring the opportunity, or you don't do it by doing the opposite, by showing them anger, frustration, envy, or some other negative quality. So I think we should start, and start with the first initiation. So Bhakti Sharmila, alias Lisa. So first, please offer obeisance. What are the 4 regulative principles that we must be promising to follow? Chanting? Is that weekly or regular? Good. Actually, Srila Krishna Maharaj told me about this. He was in China. It was his Puja, and he made a big cake. And so Prabhupada said, no meat, no fish, no egg. Oh, no. He said, what are the ingredients of the cake? Well, flour, sugar, something else, grasshopper. So anyway, not only meat, fish, or eggs, but anything that walks on legs, or wings, or legs, or fins, we avoid them, or shells. So, okay. So, your name is Sukanti Rasika Devi. Which is a name of Srimati Radharani, the servant of Srimati Radharani, who is so beautifully serving Krishna with the highest rasa. Now, as far as the second initiation, so the second initiation means, we'll discuss that privately, the Gayatri Mantra, but it means accepting more responsibility in Krishna consciousness. That's what basically it means. So here we are before the deity, and that's why we're doing this inside, so that we can be before Gornitai, who are unlimitedly merciful. Shri Shivara Gopinath, Lord Nrsimhadev, the Parampara, Shiva Gautam, the spiritual master and the Vaishnava, and soon in front of the fire. And so, with all those witnesses, hard to escape. You're guilty. You're guilty of trying to become more Krishna conscious, so we have to do it. So we will, now we can all transfer over to the Yagyasthana. We will continue. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Bhagavan ki jai.